The $14 water bottle sitting on a Las Vegas kiosk is not a result of inflation. It is a filtration system.
Vegas is really, really expensive right now.
Is that your experience?
That is my experience. So this bottle of water is $14, so.
It is designed to ensure that if you cannot afford the water, you do not belong on the street. They tell you Las Vegas was built on dreams. They're lying. It was built on the exact psychological glitches I deconstruct on this channel. It is a $150 billion simulation engineered to prove one thing: that your reality can be bought, sold, and manipulated. I spent months dissecting the financial records, the investor calls, and the demolition permits of the Mojave Desert. What I found is that the world's most powerful CEOs are intentionally driving away 400,000 visitors every single month. And they aren't worried about the loss. In fact, their entire version of success depends on a specific type of person never coming back. The blueprint for this extraction is already finished. The man who wrote it said the quiet part out loud on a public earnings call in 2023. He said it while the shareholders were listening. And he said it because he knows you aren't. Welcome back to the glitched system. Today, we're looking at the ultimate illusion. To understand why the system is glitching today, you have to understand the accident that brought it online. Most people think Las Vegas was a choice, a grand vision. It wasn't. It was a confluence lock. In 1931, the federal government began building the Hoover Dam. But here is the detail they leave out of the history books. The dam wasn't built for Nevada. It was a California project designed to power the growth of Los Angeles. Las Vegas was just a railroad stop that happened to be 30 miles away. Suddenly, 21,000 men with high wages and zero supervision were dropped into the driest place in North America. They had money, they had time, and they had no legal outlet for either. 8 days after construction began, Nevada legalized gambling. Not because of a vision, but out of desperate poverty. The city didn't grow because it was valuable. It grew because the project was. By the 1940s, the confluence lock tightened. The infrastructure was there. The legal loophole was there. And the only people with the capital to scale it were the Italian mob. For 40 years, organized crime settled disputes in the desert and ran a city where every form of excess existed openly, because no one was pretending otherwise. Here is the glitch in the timeline that should make you uncomfortable. Under the mob, the deal was more humane than it is under the algorithm. A mafia informant named Andrew Delonte described the era as the personal economy. The house knew your name. They knew your drink. If you lost your bankroll, they'd buy you a steak and a room because they wanted you back next year.
When the mob was running this town, back in the day, it was more personable. They knew your name when you came to a casino. They knew what your favorite drink was, things that you like to do, or show you should like to go to.
But in the 1980s, the code changed. A developer named Steve Wynn realized that Sin City had a ceiling. To reach the billions, he had to sanitize the simulation. He replaced the criminal chaos with what he called the adult Disneyland. He built the Mirage and its volcano that erupted for free. He built Treasure Island and its pirate battles that drew crowds who never spent a dollar. Wynn demonstrated how to use quality as a Trojan horse. He made the experience so good, so spectacular, and so affordable that the middle class felt like kings.
It was about freedom. People live a normal life at home. Then they'd set aside some money, a budget, and that money would be used to go to Las Vegas, spend it the way they want, live big, get a little crazy, stay up late, drink, go to shows, maybe gamble, all the bright lights, the freedom of Las Vegas to behave a little crazy. The town gave you permission. It was all about the freedom to indulge yourself. And we don't do that every day in our normal life. We pay attention to things. We live disciplined, go to work, take care of business. But Las Vegas, all that's out the window and you live to have fun. That was the secret of Las Vegas, and it's real important that not change. People were free to spend the money they wanted. They could eat in fancy restaurants or go to shows, stay up late, even gamble. Their choice. Free choice.
He got everyone inside the gates. He made you love the system. And that was the problem. Because once the gates were locked and the competition was dead, the corporations realized they didn't need the volcano anymore. They just needed your data. By the year 2000, something was happening on the Vegas Strip that no one was watching. The Park Place Entertainment Corporation was formed when Hilton spun off its gaming division. It absorbed Flamingo, Bally's, Paris, and Caesar's Palace. Around the same time, Steve Wynn sold his empire. MGM Grand absorbed Bellagio, the Mirage, Treasure Island, New York, New York, 2 companies, the entire Las Vegas Strip. If you were a tourist in 2003, you had no idea, because every casino kept its own brand, its own neon, its own vibe. The illusion of choice was perfect. The app designer who built MGM's platform, Aaron Ezra, admitted this directly to the Las Vegas Sunday. On record, Aaron Ezra / MGM Macro View Labs Las Vegas Sun. He said, "Our multiple apps give our customer the illusion of choice." What he is saying, in plain terms, is that a customer could spend their entire Vegas trip interacting with 5 different branded apps, receiving 5 different deals, and never once realize that every dollar they spent flowed back into the same 2 corporate vaults. This wasn't a marketplace. It was architecture. Once the monopoly was complete, the extraction began. Resort fees. In 2013, Caesars introduced mandatory daily charges for things that used to be free. Pool access, Wi-Fi, now $50 to $56 a night. Sometimes the fee is higher than the room itself.
You know what we have right now on the Strip? We have over 30 individual hotels who charge $50 to $55 for the resort fee per night. So now it's more like a $99 room turns into a $175 room. Because remember, you pay the $99 room price plus the 13.38% room tax on top of that price, plus you pay the $55 resort fee, plus you pay another 13.38% room tax on top of the resort fee.
The odds. Blackjack tables shifted from paying 3 to 2 to 6 to 5. Your $100 bet now earns $120 instead of $150. $30 stolen, every hand, in a game that looks identical to the one your father played. The hold. Slot hold percentages rose 24% on the Strip, 45% downtown. The free spectacle was demolished. The Mirage Volcano, 35 years of free entertainment, was torn down in August 2024. Crowds gathered to watch it die. Phones raised. One last eruption, then rubble. In its place, a guitar-shaped hotel tower. You pay just to enter. But the most important document in this investigation is not a data set. It is a sentence, spoken by a chief executive, on a public investor call. In 2023, Caesars Entertainment CEO Tom Reeg, 2023 Public Investor Earnings Call. Tier 1 source, on record. Caesars Entertainment CEO Tom Reeg, "You're kicking out the lowest end. I see no reason that needs to stop or would stop." What the CEO is saying, in plain terms, is that the elimination of the middle-class visitor is not a side effect of the economy. It is the stated goal. Official policy, shareholder strategy. He said it openly to the people who profit from it. While you were not in the room, most people look at a casino and see a building. We look at it and see the code. If you're starting to see the glitches in the world around you, from the rigged odds on the Strip to the extraction systems in your own city, you aren't alone. You're just waking up. Hit subscribe to stay inside the system files. We have a lot more to uncover. But here is where this story stops being about Las Vegas. Because the same week that Caesars CEO was telling investors he was kicking out the lowest end, something else was happening. Airlines were adding baggage fees they had never charged before. Grocery stores were shrinking package sizes while raising prices. Hotels in Nashville, Austin, and Miami were introducing their own resort fees. Fast food chains were raising prices 40% while reducing portions. Self-checkout lines were replacing the workers who used to greet you by name. This is not a coincidence. It is a curriculum, and Vegas is where the course was taught. This isn't just Las Vegas. This is the blueprint. Guy Debord, Society of the Spectacle, 1967, Jean Baudrillard, Simulacra and Simulation, 1981. In 1967, a French philosopher named Guy Debord published a book that most people have never read. He called it Society of the Spectacle. His argument was precise. He said that in advanced capitalism, authentic experience, the thing itself is progressively replaced by its representation. The image of the thing, the performance of the thing, and the spectacle, Debord said, exists for one purpose: to prevent the person watching from noticing the real transaction occurring. The volcano at the Mirage was not entertainment. It was a Debordian spectacle. The crowds watching the flames were not watching a show. They were being kept occupied while the odds changed at the blackjack tables behind them. The sphere is the spectacle in its terminal form. A $2.3 billion screen, showing advertisements. While the casino floor it was built to draw attention away from gets emptier every month. Jean Baudrillard took Debord further. He called it hyperreality, the map replacing the territory. The Luxor Hotel still has Egyptian hieroglyphics on its exterior. Inside, stained furniture, the smell of stale cigarettes, and a massive billboard scrim blocking the view from every window. The Egyptian sign remains. The experience it was supposed to signify is gone. What remains is a copy of a copy. All surface, no substance. And the surface is enough because we stopped checking. We stopped checking in Vegas. And because we stopped checking in Vegas, they stopped giving us anything to check for. And now that model is in your airport, in your streaming service, in your phone plan, your health insurance, and your grocery receipt. The spectacle of competition, without the substance of it. 5 apps, 1 corporation, 15 streaming platforms, 4 studios, 40 airlines, 3 conglomerates. You aren't just a visitor in a glitched city. You are a resident in a glitched system. Vegas was not the victim of this process. Vegas was the laboratory. Here is the thing about Las Vegas that no one in the financial press will say. The strategy is failing. Strip casino net income fell 40.4% in 2024. Revenue was up 6%. More money coming in, less money kept, because the cost of servicing high rollers, the private jets, the invite-only suites, the Rolls-Royce transfers, is destroying the margins that 10,000 middle-class gamblers use to generate quietly and cheaply. There is a book called Legalized Gambling, America's Bad Bet by John Idema. It contains one sentence that makes the entire Vegas strategy structurally absurd. It is this: the majority of American casino revenue does not come from high rollers. It comes from lower and lower middle-class gamblers. John Idema, Legalized Gambling, America's Bad Bet. What the data is showing us is the Breadwinner Paradox. The customers being deliberately expelled were the ones actually paying for the electricity. By chasing the 1%, the system is amputating the 99% that kept the heart beating. This is not new. The political philosopher Antonio Gramsci described it as the collapse of hegemonic consent. His argument was that dominant systems survive not through force, but through a social compact. An implicit agreement. The system extracts from you, but in exchange, it guarantees a certain standard of experience worth your continued participation. Vegas's compact was explicit. It was captured perfectly in a single Reddit comment from a man who had visited for 30 years. He wrote, "They broke the compact with the common man. You used to lose your money, sure, but in return, you got the experience of a lifetime. A cheap buffet, comped drink, a story you'd laugh about for years. That was the deal. When the compact breaks, consent is withdrawn. Not through protest, not through outrage, through absence. Hotel occupancy, 78.9%, down. Visitor numbers, down 11.3% in a single month. The Poker Palace, Open since 1974. It survived the mob, the financial crisis, and a global pandemic. In 2025, it announced its permanent closure. 126 employees, 51 years of history, gone. And yet, the CEO sees no reason it needs to stop. Joseph Schumpeter called this creative destruction, the idea that capitalism destroys existing structures to create superior replacements. But Schumpeter was wrong about Las Vegas, because what replaced the things that were destroyed is not superior. It is more expensive, it is emptier, and it is failing on its own terms. This is not creative destruction. This is what happens when a system optimizes so aggressively for the short term that it consumes the conditions of its own survival. We've looked at the CEO's earnings calls and the philosophers' theories. But the system doesn't live in a boardroom. It lives in the hands of the people who have to run the simulation every night. Meet Maria. She has been a hotel employee in this industry for 10 years. She is a veteran of the personal economy we discussed earlier. But today, she is a witness to the witness economy, a state where the only thing left for workers to do is document the decline. Maria, hotel employee, 10-year veteran. Recorded testimony. Maria said,
Yes, so we used to have events every Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sundays, and we used to do live music here on the Sand Dollar downtown here in Plaza. We used to do it, our live music would be Friday, Saturday, 9 p.m. to 1 a.m., but because tourism went down 40% now, everywhere in Vegas, not even just Vegas, but almost everywhere in America, we had to kind of cancel a lot of our events here in the plaza. We do have another Sand Dollar that we're trying to keep up with the events. Usually we're kind of more using the locals though for, our payments. But right now, because tourism went down, it's almost everywhere. They're canceling events in most places.
What Maria is describing is the cascade effect of demand destruction. When the corporations kick out the lowest end, they don't just lose gamblers. They lose the atmosphere. They lose the soul that the ultra-wealthy whales actually come to consume. Maria isn't alone. There is a cocktail waitress at Caesars who has worked the floor for decades. She knows the regulars. She knows the games. She said, "I'm seeing a lot less tips than I normally would. We've got a lot less foot traffic and a lot less people gambling." There is a server on TikTok who posted a video of her shift. She said, "Last year around this time, I made $300 to $500 in tips. Today, I just walked home with $124. And there is the digital ghost of a travel blogger who visited in 1999. She wrote, "I stayed 5 nights for $100. Coupon books were treasure maps. The Sahara had dollar blackjack tables. I stretched $40 into hours of play." These are not 3 separate stories. They are one story told across 25 years. The blogger is the proof of what the compact produced when it held. The server is the proof of what happens when the compact breaks. And Maria is the receipt, the thing that was promised, the thing that was taken, and the silence where the music used to be. This is the breadwinner paradox in human form. The casinos thought they were cutting the lowest end to save money, but they were actually cutting the legs out from under their own employees. By the time the whales realize the party is over, Maria will already be gone. And so will the Vegas you thought you knew. Las Vegas was not killed by greed. Greed was always here. The mob was greedy. Steve Wynn was greedy. Caesars and MGM are greedy. Greed did not destroy Vegas. Greed built it. What destroyed Las Vegas was something much quieter. It was the decision to stop pretending that you were necessary. For decades, the compact held because the people running the simulation understood something fundamental. They needed the crowd more than the crowd needed them. The crowd created the energy. The energy created the atmosphere. The atmosphere was the product. Everything else was just infrastructure. And somewhere in the boardrooms, somewhere between the merger and the premium repositioning strategy, they forgot that. So they built the sphere. And it is empty, not because people stopped wanting a spectacle, but because people started noticing the difference between a spectacle that gives you something and a spectacle that only takes. They didn't kill Vegas by being greedy. They killed it by being scared. Scared of a world that no longer finds their illusions worth the price of admission. This isn't just about gambling. It's about the psychology of wealth in a rigged economy. Just like we saw in the Pawn Stars illusion, Vegas is the final boss of the glitch system. If you want to understand how the money actually moves, you need to be here. The lights are still on, but there is nobody left to watch them. And the terrifying truth? The exit doors are already locked from the outside. Vegas didn't lose its soul to the highest bidder. It lost it to a CEO who believed the crowd was an obstacle rather than the point.